"Good luck, old lady," the CEO said, laughing, as he introduced his Gen Z daughter as my replacement. 30 years of experience dismissed with a joke. The room chuckled. I smiled. I thanked him. I even shook her hand. What none of them realized was that one tiny operational detail still ran through me alone. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't emotional. It was procedural. And when that detail surfaced 2 weeks later, contracts froze, investors panicked, and the company collapsed faster than anyone could explain. Age didn't end me. Arrogance ended them. My name is Helen Avery, and I had spent 3 decades building the operational backbone of a logistics technology company that prided itself on speed, disruption, and youth, even though the only reason it moved fast was because I knew where every weak joint was reinforced. And the morning I was replaced felt almost theatrical, because the CEO gathered leadership, announced a new generational vision, and introduced his 23-year-old daughter as my successor, joking that it was time to modernize, then looked straight at me and said, "Good luck, old lady," and the room laughed uncomfortably, waiting for my reaction, but I smiled, congratulated her, and thanked him for the opportunity, because by that point I had learned that ego loves spectacle while systems respond only to precision. And as I packed my office, I wasn't thinking about the insult, I was thinking about continuity, because buried deep inside the company's infrastructure was a compliance routing mechanism I had designed after a near-disaster years earlier, one that automatically flagged cross-border transactions for manual verification before clearing payments, and the verification authority had been assigned to me personally due to regulatory requirements that executives never bothered to understand, because compliance wasn't glamorous, and over the years that authority was renewed quietly without review, just another signature they trusted me to handle, and when I was removed abruptly without transition, no one reassigned it, because no one remembered it existed, and I didn't mention it, because it wasn't my responsibility anymore, and for the first week after my departure, everything seemed fine. The daughter posted upbeat internal messages about innovation, leadership applauded, and analysts praised the bold succession, but the second week a major international client attempted to clear a large transaction, and the system froze, automatically routing the verification request to an inactive profile, and because no one had mapped the dependency, the payment stalled, and stalled payments ripple outward, triggering secondary holds, and within hours multiple transactions across regions locked simultaneously, and engineers scrambled to diagnose a system glitch. That wasn't technical at all, it was structural, and when my former team reached out asking if I knew what was happening, I replied politely that I no longer had access or authority, and they escalated to legal, who escalated to the CEO, who escalated to his daughter, and that's when panic replaced confidence, because clients were demanding explanations, partners were invoking penalty clauses, and regulators flagged irregularities, and the CEO finally called me directly, his voice sharp with irritation rather than humility, asking what I had done, and I explained calmly that I had done nothing, that the system was functioning exactly as designed, and that verification authority must be reassigned formally to restore flow, and when he demanded I fix it immediately, I reminded him that I had been terminated without transition, and any involvement now would require a consulting agreement and regulatory clearance, and silence followed, heavy and expensive, and while they debated pride versus necessity, more transactions froze, stock dipped, and the press noticed delays, and within 48 hours the board intervened, offering reinstatement, apology, and compensation, but by then trust was gone. And I declined reinstatement, agreeing only to consult temporarily under strict terms, and they accepted because the alternative was collapse, and I logged in, reassigned authority, stabilized the system, and documented every step, and once operations resumed, I submitted my invoice and resignation simultaneously, triggering a governance review that questioned why a critical compliance dependency had been tied to one individual without oversight, and the irony was that I had warned them repeatedly years earlier to formalize succession planning, warnings dismissed as cautious thinking, and the fallout was swift. Investors questioned leadership judgment, the CEO stepped down quietly citing family priorities, his daughter exited just as quietly, and the company underwent restructuring that erased the bravado it once celebrated, and people later asked if I felt satisfied, but satisfaction implies emotion, and what I felt was confirmation that experience isn't obsolete just because it isn't loud, and that age doesn't make you irrelevant, it makes you dangerous to those who underestimate you. And I moved on to advisory work, mentoring younger professionals who assumed replacement meant failure, teaching them that replacement without transition is a liability. And sometimes I think about that joke, old lady, and I smile, because it wasn't my age that wiped out the company, it was the assumption that wisdom can be swapped like software, and the system corrected that assumption without anger, without theatrics, and without mercy, exactly as systems always do when arrogance ignores detail.